I want to bring Frank Klose in, who covers the Phillies. He was just in Clearwater, so Florida has it worse than here. And I'm wondering, Frank, in your time that you were down there, now you just got back last week, so this wasn't quite as big. But was there a buzz down in Clearwater, and was there precautions, and was there talk of this thing? Was it getting bigger and bigger as you were there?
Well, while I was there, it just hit Tampa. There were 2 cases in Tampa, as in the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, which is adjacent to Pinellas County, where Clearwater is, while I was there. So really, that was kind of the first time that people really started to hear that it was a local thing. And then by the time I flew home, there were a lot of people wearing masks at the airport, I will say.
Wow. So, okay, now I'm flying Tuesday. Now, not that you're going to sway me one way or another, but being there and hearing stuff and seeing stuff, would you fly back down there next week?
I think it's still okay. I mean, they seem to be focusing on international travel more than domestic travel. And, I got to think that if you're going to be on a plane, it's the same as going to the grocery store or anything else where you're going to encounter people. I know, that the air is a little bit recirculated, but I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Yeah. I probably will continue business as usual unless I understand that there was a direct link to me somehow.
Did the players down there seem like they were fearful of this, or was it one of those things where, we're hearing about it, but it's not a big deal?
Well, I don't know that this was really on their radar just yet. I mean, Gene Segura was scratched with the flu. I believe it's the actual flu, not coronavirus.
As was Aaron Nola. As was Aaron Nola yesterday. Just for people out there, he got scratched yesterday by the flu. And anytime you hear that now, you're thinking, was it just the flu?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are HIPAA laws where they can't tell us the exact condition somebody has. Even true with injuries, but there was an illness going around, but I can't lie. Like the moment you hear about the flu last week on Thursday when Gene Segura gets scratched, you think, okay, well, is this that virus they're talking about? I mean, I think that's human nature, but I didn't really hear much around the complex about coronavirus in particular when I was there.
Should sports teams and leagues, including spring training, potentially give refunds, Frank, to fans that are concerned for their well-being?
Yeah, this is a really hard one to answer for me because, the leagues are still businesses and they kind of got to protect their own financial interests. I mean, I like that the Phillies have been passing out autographs instead of having players sign them. I thought that was a nice compromise to sort of give people the spring training experience they've come to expect without putting the players, in the public eye or a little bit more into public contact. I thought that was good. Around all sports, of course, the closed clubhouses, just tries to limit the contact. I don't know if you can do much more than that. Maybe I would feel worse in an open air arena. Better in an open air arena than like a closed one. I don't know, but until the CDC says don't have these events, I don't know how you can just cancel them altogether. And there were a hurricane a couple of years ago where there was one baseball game played with no fans in attendance, and it was like the creepiest thing in the whole world. All the players thought.
Right. It's like a Marlins game.
It was down in Florida.
Yeah.
No, a normal Marlins game.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
But maybe this is one of those things where people should look at their family and try to do the best thing they possibly can. Like Ryan was just saying, if you're the affected population, I might be worried right now about when I bring back to my father, who's over 70, and has had some breathing issues, so maybe people just have to make the best decision for their own lives.
All right, Frank, I do want to get some baseball out of you while you're here. Aaron Nola could miss the opener. He had the flu, so why could he potentially miss the opener?
I think it's just a matter of when you get the flu, you get dehydrated, that's the one side of things. It usually takes you a few days to build your fluids back up. So sometimes when you're dehydrated, you can pull muscles that you otherwise wouldn't pull. So that's important that he gets rehydrated. And just bouncing him back a couple days because he's expected to be away from the team through tomorrow. He's not going to be stretched out to the point that they would expect him to be stretched out as a starter in terms of number of pitches. So that could mean that he gets a little thrown off schedule for building up his momentum, for building up his pitch count. maybe they do pitch him the opening weekend anyway, but there's a lower pitch count. And you have to rely on the bullpen a little more. That could be something that kind of works itself out. I don't think they know yet just what the plan is, and I think they're going to figure that out as time goes on. But I wouldn't be shocked if Zach Wheeler starts opening day just to be on the safe side.
That's interesting. So that's news from camp. We also have the mailbag of questions, and there was a lot of questions this week as people seem like they are really itching for this Philly season to start. There seems like there's a little bit more anticipation, and there's a guy that maybe not a lot of people have heard of who's having a great spring training. That's Nick Martini. Does he have a shot at the 26-man roster?
Yeah, Nick Martini, the Phillies claimed him off of waivers, and he's somebody that has had a cup of coffee in the major leagues. He's had some good success at AAA. My honest opinion at the time when they claimed him, like I thought they wanted to justify, outrighting Odubel Herrera off the roster by saying, hey, well, we have another guy. Well, Nick Martini, almost a couple months later, right as camp was about to break, the Phillies trade for Kyle Garlick, and they designated Martini for assignment. So Martini slipped through waivers. He remained Phillies property, which is a good thing, that no other team claimed him. But that might be one of the things which is kind of working against Nick Martini right now, because the Phillies would have to add him to the 40-man roster before he's added to the active roster. Now, the Phillies are going to have to add at least 2 players to the 40-man roster in terms of their backup infielders. And if any of these non-roster invitees like Francisco Liriano get added to the bullpen, Anthony Swarzak, Drew Storen, they have to open up more space for those guys as well. So the question will become, how many guys are you going to cut before you have to add Martini? And Nick Martini, he's a lefty. The Phillies have a lefty in Jay Bruce that could at least temporarily, fill in for Andrew McCutchen as a starter. And then the question kind of becomes, well, who's going to back him up in the outfield? Kyle Garlick might have the edge because Kyle Garlick is a right-handed hitter and Andrew McCutchen was a right-handed hitter. So the Phillies have plenty of lefty bats. I think Nick Martini is going to head to AAA. I think he's going to get to play every day. And he's the kind of guy, because he's got minor league option available, that they could bring him up and down if they needed to later in the year. So he's a good asset to stash at AAA, but I think he's not going to make this team.
All right, another question in the mailbag here for Frank Klose. This is from Kevin, and this is a question, Frank, that I think could have a lot of answers, and the fans are hoping for multiple answers. But what Phillies player will be most improved in 2020 compared to last season, 2019?
My answer to this is Bryce Harper. And you look at Bryce Harper last year, he had a tremendous year. He had 35 home runs. And like Mike, you actually wrote about it the other day. Like, could this be an MVP type season for Harper? And the reason I really like Harper is the most improved is that he's getting to come into camp and do his normal routine this season. There's not a long drawn out off season where everybody is speculating about his life nonstop, or he doesn't know whether he's headed to Arizona or Florida, depending on who he signs with. He can go into camp with his normal routines. Remember this time last year he still hadn't played in a spring game, so. He was kind of behind the 8 ball there. And then even after he gets to Clearwater, then he's got to find a place to live in Philly. Like this, he's going to have the normal routine this year. And I've got to think that from a human standpoint, that having that comfort, having that normal routine is going to make him feel that much more comfortable going into this season. And, besides that, too, the lineup is a lot better. I mean, taking out Odubel Herrera, Cesar Hernandez, and Maikel Franco, and making sure that you have Scott Kingery in there every day. You have Didi Gregorius in there. Andrew McCutchen will be back at some point, too, but they have Jay Bruce, too, to back him up. Rhys Hoskins is looking pretty good now. You got to feel better about the lineup, and when the lineup around you is better, you see more to hit. So I think this could be a really big year for Bryce Harper.
All right, another one here in the mailbag from Julian. He wants to know, with this McCutchen situation potentially lingering on throughout the season, why not sign Yasiel Puig?
Well, there's a couple of reasons I would not advocate for this. The first is Yasiel Puig still wants to be paid big money. He's not a guy that's out there that could be had on the cheap because it's late. He reportedly turned down a $10 million one-year deal already on this offseason. So I don't think he's coming cheap, and I think the Phillies would rather have that money for later. But to be very honest, I think Andrew McCutchen isn't that far behind. I don't think it's really going to drag on that long. I watched him take batting practice on a backfield last week, In fact, the picture I used for the mailbag, I took that picture watching him take batting practice on the field last week. Larry Boa was pitching to him. Larry, by the way, is never aging. But I think McCutcheon's far enough along. And, I think with an injury like the ACL, it's about, when do you feel safe that you can just let him be Andrew McCutcheon? You don't want him to go out there and give it all on the field like he always does and he always has his whole career. And because he's a little too intense, re-injure that knee. So I think they're just being cautious. They want to make sure that they have Andrew McCutcheon the rest of the way. He's not that far behind. They're still saying April. I have no reason to doubt the Phillies, on their word that it will be April when he is back. So I think Andrew McCutcheon is coming back soon. And in the meantime, Jay Bruce can play some left field. It looks like he's getting back into the swing of things from his own injury. And even beyond that, you still have some other options who can play the outfield. So I think they are okay for right now. I would save that money and see what you have at July 31st.
All right, Frank Klose covers the Phillies, of course, for 97.3 ESPN.com. You heard the Powder Blue podcast last night in which you guys talked about the leadoff spot, and you just kind of touched on the left field situation with McCutcheon out. Is JT Realmuto the guy that you would hit in the leadoff spot?
He was on my list. In fact, he batted leadoff today, and he homered again. I think.
Now he did hit leadoff for the Marlins a little bit, did he not?
A little bit. I'm not really sure that the sample size was that big to really follow. But I mean, he's not the ideal leadoff hitter. And one thing that Jeff says in the podcast is there's not a Ricky Henderson anymore out there or a Lenny Dykstra, the old school leadoff types. But for me, and Jeff did not put him as his leadoff hitter. But for me, I think he'll be good because he sort of sets the tone. He's not a high on base kind of guy, but you're going to get a really good at bat from him to start the game, and the guys behind him that will follow him are going to be productive. Gene Segura was very, very good in the number 2 hole when he batted there last year. He seems to be refreshed and renewed. I could see him having those multi-hit games he had last year a lot, batting in the 2 hole. So I think other than that, it just kind of lines itself up pretty nice if he's your leadoff hitter. Now you got to remember though that because he's the catcher, he's not going to start 7 days a week. So in his absence, I would probably go Roman Quinn.
All right, Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com, at Frank Klose with a K on Twitter. You can always send him your mailbag questions, and we'll try to get to them Tuesday. Frank will be back on Thursday with more updates on the Phils, and obviously we'll see. I'll be down there Tuesday. We'll hopefully have some more news on this team. We got bullpen. We got 4th and 5th spot in the rotation. We got that leadoff spot. So there's still some things to iron out at spring training. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Frank Klose, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.